Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective. And today I'm finally going to get around to building this. Now, if you have absolutely no idea what this is a model kit for probably one of the most iconic computers, let alone ThinkPads, that was ever built. And this, of course, is the IBM ThinkPad 701c. And I have a fair bit of information about this device's history and the people that built it on the channel. So there's about a 30-minute, we'll call it mini documentary, talking about the development of this machine. And I've also had the opportunity to talk to David Hill about it. I've also had the opportunity to talk to George Caritas, who is the late John Caritas' brother. And he shared some insights on kind of the person that came up with this idea of this insane keyboard. And when I say insane, I mean both in terms of its brilliance and the engineering that it required to get this thing working correctly. Now, I do have a full-size one of these actually just sitting over here on the shelf. So you can see that this is the full-sized version, if you will. And one of the obviously iconic features of this device is that the keyboard disappears inside when you close the lid. Now, this one is obviously in pretty rough shape, and they're all starting to look like this. If you want to see one that's in pristine condition, you need to go check out Polymath's channel, where he's restored one of these, and he's even 3D printed case parts for them as well. Anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and turn our attention back over to the model kit itself, and I'm just going to leave this off to the side as a reference. Hopefully I don't need it. So, the model kit is unique in the sense that this was a Japanese exclusive product. Now, you can still find these on eBay at the filming of this video in July of 2025 for varying prices. I've seen them as cheap as around 210 Canadian dollars, and I've also seen them as high as 800 Canadian dollars. So they're getting to the point where they're starting to command the values that the actual 701c used to command, but now the 701c, if you want one working, is about 1900 plus. And interestingly enough, the kit was designed by IBM Japan, and I'm just going to flip open in Kazuhiko Yamazaki's book on Richard Sapper design, and I'll leave a link to this book if you want it. It's really neat just about design in general, let alone ThinkPads. And you can see that the model kit is actually referenced here as well. And this was put together for the 10th anniversary of ThinkPad. And you can tell that by the 10th anniversary ThinkPad logo in the bottom. Now, fun story, it was actually David Hill that pointed out to me that these things existed, and he actually sent me a listing for this one specifically. I think he wanted me to have one, and I don't blame him. They are really, really cool, and I finally had the opportunity to sit down and build it. Fun fact, this is actually the second one of these kits that has passed through the film studio. And you might be asking, well, what happened to the first one? Well, the first one went to someone that I believe really needed to have one of these, and they didn't even know that they existed. So I took it upon myself to mail them that kit that I had, and I think it went to a very good home. And afterward, I found another one, thanks to David, and purchased it as well to keep for myself. So let's go ahead and open this thing up. Now, one of the things that I do know about these is that some of them are in varying states of quality. And what I mean by that is the plastics on the inside of these things don't always age super duper well. And I know that because when Clint from LGR put his together a couple of years back, he talked about how the plastic had actually warped. So, and we can see that the casing here, or the packaging, has kind of turned this off-white color. So hopefully everything inside is in good condition. We have an instruction booklet, which is written entirely in Japanese. However, I'm hoping that I'll be able to put it together even though my Japanese is non-existent. So you can kind of see that the card has yellowed over the years. That's, again, to be expected. But more importantly, hopefully the case has not warped or deteriorated. So we've got the case here. We have all of the parts to build the keyboard. Looks like one of the latches fell out. And then we have some springs and tiny screws and a tiny screwdriver and a tiny track point. And then of course we have the keyboard itself, and it's packaged in its folded design. And what I'll probably do for my own sanity, I'm not an expert model kit maker, is I'm going to put the gear pieces in that box, and I'm going to put all of the smaller pieces in this box. And it looks like the very first thing that we have to do is install a series of pieces on the bottom of the keyboard. So let's open that up. Put those over there. And we've got these 4 pegs. And I think we need something from the tiny bag of things. So the track point cap, number 12, goes in there. And then we have 2 rings, and they slide over those 2 pegs, but not those 2 pegs. And then step 2 shows all sorts of things happening at once. It looks like we're going to need this base plate, and we're going to need the spring, and we're going to need some of the pieces that make this whole thing go. Okay, so we have this fella here, and it looks like the spring is going to go inside there. And we've got this piece that's going to keep that under tension. And then we're going to have this piece go here. And it looks like, now, interestingly enough, I can tell from the tolerances that I'm going to have to be very, very careful. And what I mean by that is there's a gap here and here. And now you can tell how far down that's supposed to go because of this. And you want that to be pretty straight, but you also don't want to strip the screw or damage the plastic. Okay, so I had to disassemble this, so that is obviously the way it's supposed to go in. Took me a second to figure it out. Again, not a model kit person, so I'm giving myself a bit of grace putting this together. Okay, there we go. That's done what it's supposed to do. Spring goes in. Put that under tension. There we go. And now we just got to put in 4 screws. Now, if you're not completely familiar with the story behind this, what IBM was trying to solve at the time is how do they make a super compact notebook with a full-size keyboard when the biggest hunk of glass was essentially a 10.4-inch screen. And they had a couple of different ideas, and ultimately it was John Caritas, Dr. John Caritas, sitting down with some building blocks that one of his daughters was playing with, and Dr. Caritas saw this, and he went and he photocopied a Model M keyboard, and he started cutting the keyboard into pieces, the paper that is. And when he did that, he figured out, haha, if I cut it in such a way, I can actually get these pieces to take up less space in terms of aspect ratio and fit the keyboard inside of a smaller device. So really, really neat and complex solution to a problem, and it's just captured the imagination of so many people, understandably. We are going to need this piece. We are going to need this piece. And it looks like that is going to go on these two pegs right there. And then this piece is going to go on these two pieces here. And it looks like we'll need 4 longer screws for this. But yeah, like this thing is nothing short of an incredible piece of engineering. And Richard Sapper had a hand in the design. Sam Lucent also had a bit to do with the work on this machine as well. There are stories floating around that Tim Cook also had something to do with it. However, outside of a happenstance mention in Naito-san's book, there doesn't seem to be any meat to that story. That's the only place that it shows up. And no one else seems to have any information related to that. So it's an interesting idea to try and connect these two things, but realistically, there is probably no correlation or like direct connection. Tim Cook was working in procurement at the time, so he might have had something to do with like finding plastics or something, but that would be about it. So you can kind of see now with those two pieces, they're going to make sure that this thing fits together the way that it's supposed to, and change that aspect ratio. So what makes this mechanism so complex is not obviously these two cams, although this is like it's brilliant in and of itself. It's going to be all these gears that are going to make this happen automatically. And we have quite a few of them. So there are 4 gears right here and a series of pieces with teeth. Now, these gears are, thank goodness, numbered. So I will make sure that I'm putting them in correctly. So gear number 6, for example, goes on the top peg. And then we need to find gear 8, because this is gear 5. And that goes in this track here. And you can see that there's a groove carved in there where this fits. And then we're going to take this fella, and it's going to fit in this groove with this piece, like that. So that's all of the pieces there. And now I think we have to flip it over to instruction number 6, where we're going to need this piece. We're going to have to drop in the mock LED bar, like that. And that's the faux IR blaster, which is a nice touch. That fits in like that. And then this is going to go underneath, and that's going to attach very precariously to that thin, thin, thin plastic. So those two are now attached, and it looks like we're going to switch over to doing some quick assembly of the bottom case. Let's switch cameras again here. All right, now we can take this whole assembly here with all the gears, and we're going to say goodbye. And we're going to cover it up. Then we got 4 screws to secure the bottom. 2, 3, 4. So the bottom case is mostly assembled. Now we are missing the cam on the display that drives the whole thing. Okay, now that we got those springs on those pegs correctly, this should be a lot easier. Okay, so just like the original, the screw tolerances are exceptional in the sense that if you don't put one of these things together exactly so, you're screwed. Now, I can tell by looking at the front case here that there was some warping of the bottom cover. I'm going to see what I can do by disassembling and reassembling it, see if I can get it to close a little better. When it opens currently, it's not engaging the latch, so we're going to have to do a rebuild here. Okay, everything here looks on the level. The gears are in their relaxed position, the teeth are correct. Everything here, tolerance-wise, is good. So I'm assuming that the culprit here is this bottom case. So we're going to try and put it on again. And I'm going to try and snug it down a little more this time. Okay, that seemed to close a lot better. We can still tell that these plastics have been warped over storage. Case in point, that still doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Yeah, I would say that something in there is binding. Closing works as you'd expect. There are some tolerance issues with that case for sure, especially you can see that along the back. Not much I can do about that. And then when it opens, that cam is out of the way, but it needs a little bit of TLC to move it back into place. I might be able to get it to open and close a little bit better, a bit of lubrication on the inside there. But overall, I'm just happy that this thing is out of the box and back together. Now I can put the card in the display. All right, so if we take this and we spin that guy around, there we have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, I hope you enjoyed me wrestle with this. It's kind of a neat piece of ThinkPad history. It's pretty much the definitely only assemblable model kit that I know about of a ThinkPad at any size that's been reduced. If you want to have something in your collection that is 701c, this is probably the easiest thing to get your hands on. And depending on, one, your model making skills, I'd imagine, and how good a condition your kit's in, how much warp it's undergone over the years, you can probably have a very good conversational piece at a fraction of the cost, especially if you're not really concerned about the functionality. Getting one of these things working in an even moderate condition, again, is now a 4-figure effort, whereas this, at the very least, is still under 4 figures. At any rate, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I would encourage you to do that. You never know when I might be able to share neat things like this with you. And as always, I will see you next time.